Okay, so everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Given the COVID-19 outbreak and the way everyone's been kept away from public events, we waited till the last minute and before canceling the live event that would have been in Red Deer, although we're going to be able to still be able to get some content out to you guys this Saturday. So this is part of our Riches from Real Estate and our Get Rich in Canada presentation. And so we're going to get right into it. And so most people are not really prepared for the future. And for this, we're talking about retirement. Only 1 in 3 Canadians have nothing saved for retirement. That means that there are people who are ready to retire right now and they have absolutely zero money. 76% of baby boomers aren't confident that they've saved enough for their retirement. The number of seniors declaring bankruptcy has grown to 7% in Canada. And nearly 1/3 of homeowners are of retiring age, but they still have mortgage debt. So that's people who are retiring and they still have to make payments on their house. 60% of retirees don't budget for entertainment and activities. And I don't know about you, but that's not, I plan on having a little bit of fun and doing some traveling and, when I'm retired. And so other people are not putting that in their budget. And so they're going to quit their jobs and they're not going to have much to do. And is not kind of the reason for working hard during your working years is so that you can enjoy your retirement. As well as people are living longer and longer, which longer and longer lives, we have better health care, better health systems. And as a result of that, that means that retirement savings need to last longer. So today's retiree does need a lot more financial resources to retire. And that's going to require a more sophisticated way of building assets, which is much different than old pension plans of the industrial age. It's clear that a lot of those pension plans don't grow very quickly. They're susceptible to still being able to lose money when there are big market corrections and crashes. A lot of the financial industry just in the last week or two has having very dismal outlooks. And so what this means is that we need to be able to get smart and we need to figure out other ways to being able to have enough money to be able to retire on. Most Canadians do believe in saving for retirement, and most of them do put their money in RRSPs and tax-free savings accounts. And then this is the typical retirement plan. They withdraw until their money runs out. So they just save it up and then they take it away. So I like to consider that like chopping down the trees to sell the firewood. So they've been planting their retirement seeds throughout their whole life, and then they're going to chop it down, sell the lumber, and that's what they're going to make off their retirement. And it's very hard to be able to determine what's the right amount to save. They used to say it was $1 million, then they say you need 2, then 3. It really has more to do with your rate of return, and you can retire with less money if you're getting a good return. So how many days will your retirement last you? So the definition of being wealthy is the number of days you can survive without working and still maintain your standard of living. We talked about being able to escape the rat race. And so what that means is having enough money coming in that is more than your expenses. I thought that I would also highlight this one strategy. This was a story that was going around January, February, and this gentleman here in front of the Holiday Inn, he figured that in the United States, he could rent a room in the Holiday Inn instead of living in a senior care facility. And his senior care facility was about $177 a day for care and 3 meals. When he went to the Holiday Inn instead for his retirement plan, he was able to stay there for $58 a day. Included a continental breakfast, workout room, swimming pool, and not only that, he did have to, buy his dinner, buy another meal on top of that, which wasn't provided. But he said that the service from the staff, they treat you like a customer rather than a client. And so this is what some people are turning to do in order to be able to retire and to be able to make their retirement last long enough. So here's an example. If you had $1 million saved up, and this is being able to take money out of it each year. And so each year you have a diminishing balance. If all you're doing is saving up and then using those savings to spend throughout your retirement years, there has to be a much better way. And that's really where we want to focus on things like passive income, because that's income that you cannot outlive. So imagine having two men walking down the street on a windy day, and a piece of paper blows along the sidewalk in front of one man, then the other. The first man ignores the litter, keeping his eyes on the block up ahead. The second man peers at the scrap, realizes it's a $20 bill, and picks it up. Is that person luckier? No. The same opportunity crossed the path of both men, but only one of them was prepared to take action. Keep your eyes open and be able to take opportunity when it's in front of you. Only when you're trained and prepared for opportunity are you going to be able to take it. So this is a story of Mike and Scott, and it's a little animated video that we just made. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It'll help with a lot of the lesson.
I wanted to share this very brief story with you so that you guys can get an idea of how to build your own pipeline and how you'd be able to stop trading time for dollars. Far away, in a small village near a beautiful valley, lived two friends, Mike and Scott. They were both young and dreamed of a better life for themselves. They'd often discuss their dreams about how they would become the most successful men in the village. They weren't afraid of hard work and searched for opportunities to realize their goals and achieve their dreams. One day, an opportunity presented itself. The owner of the pancake house decided to hire two people to bring maple syrup from a nearby forest in the mountains across the valley and back down to the pancake house. They were to be paid based on the amount of maple syrup delivered to the pancake house. Mike and Scott enthusiastically got to work every day from morning till evening. They carried buckets to and from the forest. They worked hard carrying syrup to the pancake house. In the evening, they'd return home with their day's wages. Scott was satisfied with his work and the money he earned. He was sure that with this work he could achieve his dreams. Scott thought that to increase his wages, he could use bigger buckets to bring more syrup each trip. He believed with a larger income, he would soon be able to buy a new car and the house he dreamed about. Now, Mike was not satisfied at the end of the day. His back and hands ached and he was exhausted. He was looking for an easier way to earn more. One day, an idea occurred to Mike. He imagined building a pipeline to deliver the syrup from the mountain forest to the pancake house. With this pipeline, he could get more syrup to the pancake house without carrying buckets back and forth from the forest to the pancake house. Soon he got very excited about his idea and began to plan. Mike, of course, shared his idea with his friend Scott and asked him to join with the work and help build the pipeline. Scott thought the idea was crazy. All Scott could think about was what his money could buy today and how to get it quicker. He felt that building a pipeline would slow him down and delay him in achieving his goals. Instead, Scott got bigger buckets and went more often back and forth fetching syrup. He was sure that this method could make more money. Mike decided to build the pipeline on his own. He understood that it would not be easy to build and it would take him time to complete the pipeline. Mike knew that it could take several years to finish, but he kept his mind on his goal. Every day he worked and carried buckets of maple syrup like before, but on weekends during his spare time, he worked hard, achieving a network of pumps and hoses together to build his maple syrup pipeline. In the first month, there was little to show for his work. Scott and the villagers laughed and teased him. They called him Mike, the pipeline man. During this time, Scott's income doubled. He already bought a new car and a bigger house. His lifestyle changed. He now spent time after work in the bar, enjoying his hard-earned wages from delivering maple syrup. What Scott didn't realize was that his body was starting to stoop from carrying the heavy buckets every day. His face looked worn and his body tired. Soon, he began to carry less and less syrup due to the wear and tear on his body. Month after month, Mike worked. Soon, a year passed, and then a second year. Finally, Mike finished his pipeline. Now he used his pipeline to deliver maple syrup to the pancake house instead of carrying buckets. Mike was now earning more money than ever before. The syrup continued flowing to the pancake house while Mike wasn't working. It even flowed while he slept and ate. Mike was happy and proud of his insight, persistence, and hard work. Now his income flowed as long as the syrup flowed through his pipeline. The story of Scott and Mike is a reflection of life. Their jobs symbolize what most people do to earn money. Scott gets his money using buckets. He goes back and forth carrying his buckets from the forest to the pancake house in exchange for money. To increase his income, he either has to go more frequently to the forest or use larger buckets. It's common in real life to increase our income by working harder. For example, working overtime or getting a second job. We also increase the size of our buckets by accepting a higher paying position, which often includes spending more time on the job. Most of us exchange time for money like Scott. We know that every person has only 24 hours in the day, and it's not possible to use all our time to work. Okay, the most difficult time comes when we can no longer exchange time for money due to age, health, or other reasons. Then our income stops. Now let's review what Mike did. Very wisely, Mike did not exchange all of his time for a limited income, but he used some of his time to build a pipeline. He knew that the pipeline would bring ongoing income as long as the syrup flowed, and ongoing income that multiplied the time he worked each day. Mike knew that someday, maybe because of age or health, he would no longer be able to exchange his available time for money. Mike knew that if he could make the idea of a pipeline work, then he only had to do the hard work of building the pipeline once. After the pipeline was completed, Mike was able to monitor and maintain the flow of syrup to ensure that his income would continue. Mike has shown us that to earn an income, we don't always have to directly exchange time for money. There really are better ways. How about you? Are you still like Scott, who directly exchanges time for money? Or do you want to be like Mike, building and maintaining a pipeline for ongoing income? We can use the exact same concepts that Mike did when building the pipeline that delivered maple syrup, but we're able to do so using real estate.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of that lesson of how Mike was able to spend some of his free time building his pipeline that allowed him to have the passive income to retire. So now we're going to go and we're going to use some real estate, and we're going to be showing how that can create an income stream for you to be able to retire off of. Now, quick disclaimer, this is not intended as legal, financial, or professional advice for your personal financial situation. Information presented is believed to be factual and current. It should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. When is the best time to plant a money tree? Well, they say the best time is yesterday. The next best time is now. Now, in Robert Kiyosaki's book, The Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert defined 4 different quadrants. E standing for employee, S for self-employed or small business, B for big business, and I, which stands for investor. Now, an employee has a job, and a self-employed person pretty much owns a job. Big business has systems that work for them. And in Robert's book, for those that are familiar with the book, he defines big business as having like 500 or more employees, where the owner can basically be living life on a beach and have his systems working for him, generating money. The new definition is that you do not need 500 employees, because there's a lot of automation and technology has really changed that a lot. But business does have systems, whether they're employees or procedures or computer things going on. Big business has systems that make money. The investor has money working for them. So on the left-hand side of the quadrant, this is active income, and the right-hand side of the cash flow quadrant is passive income. And so what we want to be doing is going from the left-hand side of the quadrant to the right-hand side of the quadrant. Passive income really is money while you're sleeping. People from across the world seek passive income because it helps offset some of their typical expenses. If a person earned $500 per month of passive income, then they might use it to pay for some of their groceries or their phone bills. Some people even reach a point known as financial freedom or financial intelligence. This is a state when your passive income is high enough to live on. At that point, you could quit your job, pursue the business idea that you always wanted, or sit back and work a little bit less. In essence, you can have the economic freedom to do more of what you please when you have passive income in your life. Robert Kiyosaki says the problem with the world is there's not enough problem solvers. When you solve problems, you become rich. So just like in our video with Mike and Scott, the maple syrup farmer believes in creating a system that'll make work easier. They understand that it can take several years before the system is built. And these are the 2 different ways that people do harvest maple syrup. They either have these vacuum lines that go through the forest and have a pump that sucks all the maple syrup up, or they still do it the traditional way where they have a bucket and it fills up with syrup and they harvest it. So the maple syrup farmer knows that it can take several years before a system is built. And then they're going to continue harvesting the syrup that's produced from the maple trees. And the maple syrup farmer does not cut down the maple tree to sell the lumber. This is a big difference between the old way of thinking and the new way of thinking. So now we're going to define a bit of a problem that's going on. And in order to define the problem, we need to talk a little bit about the old mortgage rules and how they've changed over the last decade and more. So before 2008, we used to be able to have 100% financing, and you used to be able to do that with 0 money down. You used to be able to take as long as 40 years to be able to amortize a property. You could also get cashback mortgages. That's where the bank is paying you to buy a house. And there was no limits on how many mortgages you had, as long as you had strong credit. So following 2008, there were more changes. They got rid of the 100% financing. They changed it from 40 years to 35 years for how long they'll allow you to pay off a house. And they started actually introducing minimum credit scores at that time. As people know, there were a lot of ninja mortgages, especially in the United States. That means no income, no job. And then in 2011, they went from 35 years to 30 years to pay for a mortgage. So every time that you have less time to pay for a mortgage, or any person who's taking less time to pay for a mortgage, the monthly payments for the same house go up. It went from 30 years to 25 years, as if you're putting less than 20% down, as well as it got a lot tougher for self-employed borrowers. I know Danella has been through a lot of that, and seen a lot of that throughout all of these years. Um, More changes in 2016. Minimum down payments on homes over $500,000 changed, so you needed 10% for every dollar over $500,000. So you could still get away with 5% down for the first 500,000. Then you need 10% down for every amount after that. That also means people need to save up more in order to buy a house. Also, stress tests started to get introduced as well, and that was first on high ratio mortgages, and after that they made it apply to every single mortgage. It does not matter what you're putting down, you must pass the stress test. And guess what? People still dream of owning a house, even though it has become tougher and tougher and tougher. More and more hardworking Canadians are being turned down by the big banks, and they can't finance a home. It's a real problem. Yesterday's A borrower is declined today. And so the solution for this is alternative home financing. And that means owning real estate and selling it as a rent to own, which allows us to profit while solving a housing problem. Who is rent to own for? Well, it's for people who are new Canadian immigrants. They might be recently divorced. They might not have a full down payment. They could be self-employed, but they do have to be working. They do need to have income, and the type of income that would allow them to get a mortgage later. So as an example, who it would not be for is if somebody is receiving a disability check. The bank will, they might be able to make their payments on time, but the bank will still not give them a mortgage at the end of the rent to own term. But there is a good number of people who we can help. And so this is a program for Canadians, and it's built and founded by Canadians. So this is how rent to own works for the tenant buyer. So they're going to come into the program, they're going to get pre-screened. They have a starting deposit that they're going to put down on the property. They're going to pay rent each and every single month, as well as they're going to pay into a forced savings account. Legally, that's called the option consideration. But what that means is that a little bit of money is being saved every single month. And over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, their savings is going to get added up to their original starting amount, and it's going to equal their down payment. And it's going to become the end of the program, and they're going to own the house. And what's nice is that if they are a family and they have kids, their kids can become friends with the same kids in the neighborhood, go to the same schools. And when they close and own the house, nothing changes in family life. They keep living in the house, and they get to be part of the community a little bit sooner, and they don't have to move again. And this is how rent to own works for us as investors. We're going to receive a large starting deposit, much larger than a typical rental property. And this is why I prefer rent to own over buy and hold. Also, our buyer is going to be adding monthly contributions to their starting deposit. And 95% of this growing deposit is non-refundable. This means if they walk away from the house or don't buy it for any reason, they are not going to be able to get that deposit money back or any of the amount that it's grown by. Very little of it is refundable. And that would either add us more cash flow to our deal, and it could be additional profits as well in a failed rent to own. So each month that we're going to be receiving rents, it's going to be paying down the mortgage on the property. So that's happening in the background. And when the tenant buyer does buy the property, we're going to get the difference between what's owing on the property and the final sale price. That's when the majority of the profits are when these houses are sold and the tenant buyer is buying. There's many benefits to a rent to own, and it can be phenomenal cash flow. There's also no tenant and toilet headaches. It really is passive. Risks are controlled with a large starting deposit and proper screening methods. And we don't have maintenance costs in a rent to own home because our tenant buyer is going to be signing a maintenance agreement with us. So they have to fix anything that would happen as if they owned the home from the very start. As well as there can be a quick turnaround because this is only 3 to 4 years long, and there is a defined exit strategy. And these types of rent-to-owns are eligible to be invested in with an RRSP, LIRA, RESP, and TFSA accounts. This is called the investor food chain, and I'm just going to let Christina into the room really quick. Welcome back, Christina. We're going to get into the investor food chain right now. So here at the top of the food chain, we have a capitalist, and that would be somebody like me who can see opportunities and who does the work and creates the systems. Below the capitalist is an investor, and they like to do private investments, and they work with the capitalist, and they also see the capitalist's vision. Below that, we find public offerings. That could be initial public offerings. That's when a company goes from being private to public, and their stocks go on the stock market. There's also could be preferred shares as well as public stocks. They can be highly volatile as well with stocks, as we've seen just recently in the market, as well as when it's very hard to get offered an IPO. Most people are not getting calls from their bankers before a company goes public. Those opportunities are typically reserved for rich and wealthy clients, so they're not always accessible to everyday people like you and me. Below public offerings, we have mutual funds, which is really just a collection of stocks. There are more mutual funds in Canada than there are individual stocks. They are very high fees. A mutual fund can own a mutual fund. There is no control, and you do not have the ability to just call the fund manager and ask them what's going on. So you're a bit removed from any of the decision making. At the very bottom of the investor food chain is GICs and savings. These are typically done with banks, and they're considered very safe. However, they can be eroded by inflation. So what that means is the cost of goods goes up every year, and they're, depending who you're consulting with, the inflation rate could either be around 3%, but it could be much higher when we put cost of housing and other things like that in it. And if you're only earning about 1 or 2% with the bank, then that is why Robert Kiyosaki calls savers losers, because they're losing buying power from their money most days. So at the very bottom of the food chain, this is where most people are at. And these are the type of opportunities that they can invest in. And what we want to do is take you from the very bottom of the food chain to the top to be able to work directly with me. Each man must create his own system, or else he is a slave to another man's. So on our left-hand side here, we have a conveyor belt and we have people. Those are our tenant buyers. On the right-hand side, we have some houses. And when these come together, we have rent-to-owns. So when we merge these two homes with people who want to do rent-to-owns, we have a system that creates rent-to-own opportunities. I like to call that the deal factory. So on the left, that's the rent-to-own investment corporation. And you have an opportunity to be able to own a piece of every deal that the rent-to-own investment corporation does. So there will be a chance for you to be able to buy shares in this. So let's just go through the process of how this looks once our rent-to-own deal is put together. Over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to be getting that starting deposit from the tenant buyer. Rent is collected. Our mortgage is getting paid down. Their deposit is being saved up. We do quarterly checkups with our rent-to-own buyers just to make sure that their credit is monitored. And if anything happens a little bit along the way, we can correct and make sure that they are a strong borrower at the end of the rent-to-own deal. And throughout that process, they're going to be able to get a mortgage and they buy the house. The house is sold. And that's when the Rent-to-Own Investment Corporation is going to be able to make the majority of its profits, is when the house is sold. So you get to own the system. And what that means is it's a piece of every single deal. So for example, $1,000 would get you one Series 1 share. That's $900. And then the other $100 buys you a Series 2 share. And we're going to be able to go through the differences between these two shares right away. And there is a minimum investment of $5,000 for this. However, at the very end of the presentation, there is a way to get involved with $500. So we'll be covering that at the very end. And this is optional, but you can use your RRSP, your TFSA, a LIRA, which could be an old pension from a place you used to work, or a registered education savings plan. So I've been doing rent-to-owns for over a decade. And in my experience, over the course of 3 to 4 years, as one rent-to-own deal finishes, there's usually, when that deal pays out, there's enough money to go and do 2 rent-to-own deals afterwards. So it's very good for being able to double money. And so what we want to do is take one side of that when the first payouts happen from coming through the Rent-to-Own Investment Corporation deal factory. When the first money comes through, we want to turn around and be able to return your capital to you. So that means that we're going to buy back your Series 1 share for the same price you paid. Now, keep in mind, you're going to still own the Series 2 share, and that's going to go back into the system to create more rent-to-own deals. The Series 2 shares are going to be paying out dividends. So this is a quick timeline on it. Around between year 3 and year 4, the first deals are going to be finishing, and RTOIC is going to go buy back your share certificate. At that point in time, you're going to start receiving dividend payouts from all the deals that are coming through the factory. That is, the dividend payouts are going to really earn you a very supercharged return on your money. So I will get into the type of dividends you'll receive. So after 4 years, 90% of your capital is returned. You're still going to own a piece of the system with your Series 2 share and receive those dividends passively. So here are the supercharged returns. So here's an example. If you were to buy $10,000 of RTOIC, $9,000 is going to get 10 Series 1 shares. The $1,000 that's left over is going to buy 10 Series 2 shares. After year 4, we're going to start to buy back the Series 1 preferred shares, which means we're going to be returning to you $9,000. Now, your 10 preferred Series 2 shares are going to start paying dividends from every house that's coming through the system. And you're going to continue receiving dividends, which is a true passive income. So these are projected annual dividends. So year 4, we're looking at being able to pay out $150, which is a 15% return on the $1,000 that's still in the deal. Year 5, that increases and it goes up to about $300 per year. Year 6, it maintains again at 30%. Year 7, it increases. And part of this is because the company is paying back people who are going to be getting in year 2 and year 3. And so as the company buys back the Series 1 shares, there's more money in the system to be able to pay as dividends once people start getting their money out. And it continues onward. So we do have an acquisition plan, and we're going to have approximately 120 homes going through the system at all times. What that breaks down to is 40 new additions per year, and it means 40 closings per year. And the closings are when we get paid, and this is going to keep ongoing again and again and again. 40 rent-own deals in a year is a very achievable plan. Myself, back in 2016, with the help of a secretary, were able to do 93 deals that year, just pretty much the two of us. So we have a little bigger team, and we know that 40 is totally achievable. Now, what to do with your capital once you start getting paid out? So you could reinvest in another opportunity, plant another money tree, get another system going. It is your money. It is your choice of what you want to do with it. What to do with your dividend payouts? Well, you might reduce some of your expenses. You could pay for things when life happens. You may choose to work less. You could also reinvest those as well. But it is your money, so it's your choice what you wish to do with it. So here's the way that the company's structured for paying out the dividends. So 35% of the net income of the company is going to be paid out in dividends, as well as 70% of the net income after dividends is going to go to buying back those initial share certificates. We put a huge emphasis on being able to get your money back quickly and still have you owning the system. Most deals, if you were to put $10,000 into them, are not going to be paying out $9,000 in 3 or 4 years. So I do consider this, even though we are returning your money to you, this is a very good opportunity as well. And the system's going to continue working and generating payouts every single year. So as you own and you're receiving your dividend payments every year, houses are going to come through the system and you're going to get paid. The longer you own it, the more money is going to be generated. So the more time that you own your Series 2 share, you do have the ability to sell your Series 2 shares back to RTOIC, and we will buy them back at a higher price than initially purchased. We have also left aside some money to be able to buy back Series 2 shares should you wish to do so at any point in time. Let's talk about when rent-own goes wrong, because if you Google rent-own, you'll see all kinds of horror stories, but there is a right way to do it. Although even when we're doing everything right, regardless of the amount of risk management and steps that we're taking during the beginning and during the deal, sometimes rent-own can go wrong. And this can be for several reasons. The tenant buyer might lose their job. They might also be job transferred, so they may no longer need to buy the property anymore. There could be credit abuse going on, especially once we're credit coaching these people and they start looking really good. The credit card companies start sending them credit cards, and as long as they're monitored and kept in check, but it can happen. I had that happen during the Fort McMurray fire. A family just racked up debt like you wouldn't believe during their month off, and it was enough to cause them to not be able to buy the house at the end of the day. There could also be a breakdown in the marriage where there's a divorce, and so that can also be a reason why people would not buy the house at the end of the deal. When a buyer can't close for any reason, we do keep the deposit, and our plan is to just remarket the property and find another rent-to-own buyer for it. Now, I do want to stress that we're not in the business of keeping deposits. We are in the business of providing homes to people who want them. But if they do fail for any reason, we do have that as a backup, and we will keep the deposit. Here's our acquisition plan. So our acquisitions, we have one of our business partners is Broder Homes. They're in the Red Deer Lacombe area, and we've worked out a preferred pricing with them, so we can buy brand new construction to be able to offer as rent to owns. And we've been doing this outside of the RTOIC fund for many years now. I've been doing them with Jonathan Jacobson and Sean Claremont I've been doing with Jonathan for the last 6 years there, and the last couple of years with Sean. And we found that being able to offer a new home, and a lot of them were townhomes that we offered, it was very refreshing for rent-to-own buyers, because they didn't have an old, tired, beat-up house that a landlord was just trying to get rid of. So we actually have homes that people truly desire and really want. Also, we can also pick up pre-owned product, and that can be by discounted purchases or off-market deals. So if Cindy finds a really smoking good deal on a property, there's no reason we couldn't go buy it as well. Our business plan and the payouts are all based on buying the new product with our discount applied for buying a lot of homes. Although we could perform better by buying secondhand homes that are also in good condition. If we could get a home for 85% of its value, the fund will also do better and perform better, and dividends would increase if we're buying used homes at better deals as well. So our goal is to operate ethically and with the best of intentions. We want to have strong brand reputation, and we want to make sure that our tenant buyers are able to buy, and we will work with them to be able to help them to buy. If that means extending their rent-to-own agreement a little bit longer rather than having them default on it, we would sooner rather do that and have them get the home at the end of the day. So we want to be very ethical with how we're doing our rent-to-owns. We are also a diamond member of the Canadian Association of Rent-to-Own Professionals. And in the past, I used to be a volunteer. That's a nonprofit organization, and they stand for the ethical practice of rent-to-own. I was president of that nonprofit for 2 years and a director for 4 years prior to that. So I believe it's a very good association. I think the people who are running it right now are doing a really excellent job, and I just decided 6 years of volunteer work was enough, but we are still members of the association. So this is the RTOIC team. We have Jonathan Jacobson. I know he's been to a number of CAREIA events. He is the president of Broder Homes and Developments. He's done over $75 million in real estate deals, and he has a very special focus on alternative real estate finance. We also have Sean Claremont, who is the president, and he has previous management experience in a publicly traded company. He's a very active real estate investor. He's always putting deals on his Facebook. And he has very extensive experience in private mortgages and joint venture structures. Sean also has a master's in business and admin, and that has been very helpful for creating all the spreadsheets behind the scenes to make sure that our payouts are going to be good and that we can do what we want to do in future years. Everything's been planned out very nicely. And of course, you have myself. I'm John Simcoe, and I currently work with over 350 private lenders, including people with registered funds. Those are just people who I use in my deals and what I've built in my network over the years. I have over a decade of experience investing in rent-owned real estate. I'm just about at my 14 years of real estate experience in general. So I've been doing this for a while. And I do believe in creating win-win-win opportunities. I want the person who's making the deal to win. I want the investor to win. I want the tenant buyer to get the house. I want them to win as well by getting a house. And as I said before, I am a former director and president of CAREIA. We also have a financing partner for all of our purchases. So this is great because we don't need to personally qualify for any of these mortgages. RBC loved our business model because we're equity positive on every one of our acquisitions, as well as we're only buying something when we have a tenant buyer who's going to move into it. So we're not going to have vacancies unless they're not buying the home, but we will have the deposit to cover that. So RBC has basically said that they would give us unlimited mortgages at 65% loan to value at regular interest rates. So we have very good financing behind these, and so the money we're raising in the fund is to make up the rest of the down payment for these houses. Now, Olympia Trust is who is going to be looking after this. They're the trustee, and they are based in Calgary. They are licensed to conduct business across Canada. And Olympia Trust really looks after a lot of the self-administered registered plans. There's very little fees when dealing with Olympia Trust because it's self-administered. They also prepare all the statements, so you can go into Olympia Trust once you own shares in RTOIC. It'll show up on your Olympia Trust statement. When you receive dividend payouts, it's going to also show up on your Olympia Trust statement. You can do that online or receive paper in the mail. And so Olympia Trust is really good to work with, and I've been using them for over a decade as well. Now, where would you be able to find some money to be able to get involved? Well, you could transfer existing RSPs from anything that's not performing how you want it to, which is probably all of these. You know, the mutual funds and the stocks are not doing very good. And if you're in a GIC, you're not really growing a whole lot. You could make a new contribution to an RSP plan, and you would get a tax credit for making a new contribution. You could take advantage of tax-free returns, which is a really good option if you're also considering using cash for this opportunity. That way, all your dividend payouts are going to be tax-free when they start coming through. Also, if you had an old job or a place that you no longer work for, you may have a pension, or it could be a union that you used to belong to, maybe managing an old pension, and it may not be doing a whole lot. So you can also transfer that money to Olympia Trust to be able to get involved. Who should own a cash generating system? I think that you should, because you might not have a lot of time. It's going to work while you sleep. You're going to receive dividends passively. It takes all the decision making away, and it can also pay for things when life happens, and you don't ever need to see the house. Not during the time of purchase, not during the deal, and not during the sale. You never actually have to go see any of these houses. You would own the system. Now, passive income does give you the freedom of time. It reduces your stress and anxiety and fear of the future. Passive income also allows you to pursue doing things you love rather than what pays the bills. And it gives you the ability to live and work from anywhere. and it provides a platform for financial stability and growth. So just like the maple syrup farmer, it can take time for a pipeline to develop. The risk is spread out over multiple deals, and you get to actually own the system. So this is the really special moment right now, and you are the first people that we're presenting this to, period. And so there's a limited number of Class B shares. That's different than the Series 1 and Series 2 shares. A very limited number of Class B shares are available. And Olympia Trust came back to us when we gave them all of our documents and our project, and they said that what we needed was 150 Class B subscribers to be considered a publicly traded company, or to be considered a public company. And so we need 150 Class B subscribers first. We actually can't take any of the other funds until we have these 150 people. I would like you to be one of them. It is limited to $500 per person. There's no chance to do more of these, and you cannot do less. This is a cash only offering. We will not be taking anything through Olympia Trust in order to get this started. And this is limited to only 150 people. Once we have the 150 people, this will not be offered again. Now, what this also does is it gives you the first chance to be able to buy Series 1 and 2 shares with your Olympia Trust account. And that's before we make public presentations, because we have quite a plan to do some marketing and road shows and be able to raise the rest of the money to be able to do this. And so the first money that comes in, it's really important to be some of the first money into this, because you're going to start, first money in is first money paid out, and then you're going to start receiving your dividends sooner. And because other people are behind you are going to still be waiting to get paid out from in a future year, you're going to start receiving your dividend payment before them. And so you'll be able to make more money by being some of the first person in on the deal. So there's a couple ways that you can get involved. One is to go to our website, investinrtoic.ca. There is a place where you can put your name and your email address and stuff like that. And then it would be myself or Sean that would be reaching out to you, most likely me, until I become too inundated. And then Sean will help out a bit with that. The other way to get involved is just be able to message me directly. My phone number is 780-838-0242. It's my personal cell phone. You just have to message me. It's very basic to be able to prepare the paperwork. We just need to know your address, your legal name. You can buy these common shares for somebody else as well. We just need to know their name and their address and their contact information to put on the paperwork. As well as we'll be able to send you an offering memorandum about the whole opportunity. So that would be done by email, and then we'll just talk about it some more and make sure that it's a good fit. If you want to get involved, great. If you don't, I'm okay with that too. Make sure that this meets and will do for your investing goals.